This is Perek Yud Beis of Chelek Aleph of Orot HaKodesh of Rav Kook. We had a little bit of a time delay for the last couple weeks since the previous videos, so if you want to catch up on those or review them, let's sort of remember what we were talking about here. But we're really just talking a lot about how there's almost like a certain intangible underlying framework of where things sort of fit together or become universal or connected more, and then there's sort of how things on the outside, on the external level, very diverse and very separate. And so we're talking a lot about that in terms of ideas and how we can have conflicting ideas, within ourselves and between us and other people. And an analogy just to sort of get us back into the mode of how to understand this piece is to think about ourselves, the way the human beings are actually structured, how we operate. Is that as people we're very different. That's something which we like to say a lot. But if you think about it, there's really two things people tend to say. People are very different from each other. We're very diverse, lots of different kinds of people. And we also say that in a certain way, people are all the same. And I think if you think about that a little carefully, so the way to think about it is that there is an aspect of us, I would even call that the core aspect, what you can call your changeless core, the part of you on the inside that is totally immutable. It's always the same you looking out through your eyes. Your eyes might change, your mind might change, your perspective might change, your body changes, all these things are constantly changing, but it's always the same you looking out through your eyes. And so that same you that's always looking out is the part of you which is always there. It's timeless, according to the Torah's perspective, and our claim is that it is forever. Yourself, that fragment of consciousness that we call the neshama, is forever. It is experiencing through the tools that it is linked to, what we call the body and the midot, the different qualities that come with the body, all these different tools. It experiences evolution, but as an unchanging observer that is constantly experiencing change. So you can think of that as an analogy for what we're about to talk about in terms of ideas, in that when we relate to each other, so we all have very different tools. We have different qualities and quantities, the way that our bodies are designed, the way that our different formats within the body, the emotions and thoughts are designed. And so we have a lot of different elements or diverse tools that we use to try to connect the immutable, the unchanging selves, one to the other. What relationship is about discovering the ways that I am the same as the other person in the relationship, finding the common ground, the place where we can connect. And every human being has the same universal needs, searches, struggles on the inside. It's just that the format of the tools that we each were equipped with vary from person to person. So the same thing is true also here with these ideas. Let's just read this. The title of this piece is called Etzem HaMachshavos HaShonos. That means the essence of different kinds of thoughts. So it's really what we just spoke out a little bit. Machshavos HaShonos Einan Sotros Zo Es Zo Be'etzem. Different thoughts don't really contradict each other in terms of their essence. In other words, on the essence level, similar to on the core level of a person, on the essence level, so every thought has its place and has its application in that way, and it just kind of has like its home, where it applies, where it's true, and then the other thoughts kind of fit around it in puzzle piece format, and each one has its space. So they don't actually contradict each other in terms of their etzem, their essence. Hakol enokim hisgalos achdus achdutit. Really, these are just, there's an underlying, I guess you can call it like a revealing of their oneness. When you're able to get to the essence level, you can see how they're all one. Achdutit, achdus means oneness. Ha-mitra'eh benitzotzim shonim. So that this oneness is visible in different sparks. In other words, we encounter a little spark here, a little spark there, and if you trace it back to the root, to the core, so then you can find how it's really all coming from one essence. So, however, just like with bodies, they create shadows. In other words, a body is a blockage. My body blocks myself from getting to another self that I want to be close to. If our selves are endless, intangible, not measurable, so you can think of our body as serving almost like two purposes, or at least exhibiting two qualities or dynamics. One is that our body is a tool that we use since we are separate because of our body from other selves, so we have to figure out a way to access through the body another self. So we do all kinds of things. We talk, we hug, we touch, we do activities together, and that brings us into connection with other selves around us. So that's one way that the body operates. But the other dynamic of the body is actually a little bit more fundamental, which is that the body is actually the cause of our experiencing ourselves as separate from the other selves in our lives. First and foremost, it is actually the blockage and the separation. It creates a shadow it's called here itself, some kind of, it makes a block. If you think of yourself as a light that shines out, and your body kind of blocks that. And sometimes you can even, when you're out of harmony with your body can block it out very intensely. Really intense out of harmony is when our bodies die, when we treat them very improperly, or they break apart for a variety of reasons. So then that really blocks the ability for us to access the light of your particular consciousness. And there's also smaller examples of that when you're out of harmony with your body. But that's basically the idea here. Your body casts a shadow on the light of yourself. And again, light of yourself here is an analogy. The light is an analogy for the presence. There's a qualitative you that is shining out through the body that makes you not that other person. Each of us is a different sort of light or signature or energy that we manifest. Those are all analogical terms. It's not literally light, but just like you can't see light, you only see things in light. So also this, we see things in your light, means it's like your signature or your style. So just like just like the bodies create shade like that, and they block the light, and they basically cause damage through this to the sources of light. In this example, it would be the self. This is also true about intangible shadows, similar blockages that are not like the body that's a tangible blockage, but intangible blockages. We're going to describe what that is in a second. This blocks or holds back the shine or the brightness ha'orit shel chalakim of each of the different parts, like the light of each of the different aspects that are intangible underneath them, that are kind of running in parallel with those blockages. So it's kind of, again, like yourself is in parallel to your body. In other words, you shine out from every part of the body in different ways. Here I'm shining out through my hand right now, but also shining out through my face. And you're constantly broadcasting yourself through every aspect of your body. So too it is with on a conceptual or intangible level that there's, and we're going to explain what we mean by intangible things in a second, but there's a similar structure where you have blockages that block out corresponding light or ideas or whatever that's included in the intangible concepts here. V'atzlalim hem toldos hadimyon. So what that means, what examples of that, these shadows are results of the imagination. Imagination that has not been clarified or lit up so much from the shine of the actual clear thought, or what we call seichel, clear process of understanding. And so if you have false ideas or false perspectives, in other words, things that conflict with reality that you think are true. Here's an obvious one. Let's say you've been hurt very often. So maybe you think that it's objectively true that you should never trust anyone. Now, you might not even be aware that you have that paradigm, that basic perspective or thought. But that thought is it comes from your imagination. You imagine that to be the reality within which you live. And you got that because you've experienced certain types of results or experiences in your life that seem to convey that. That's something which happens, since it happened to you a number of times and it was traumatizing. It left a mark, and you learn from that. That's actually the way things are. This is the truth now. People are not trustworthy. And the other situations where people actually are trustworthy, so you don't see those as clearly, and you decide this is a way to think about reality that is actually real. This is what it is. So that's imagination, because imagination has the capacity to deviate from what's real. Now, I'm not going to discuss how to analyze or understand when are people trustworthy, how trustworthy are people, questions like that, which are bigger questions on this topic. But Toldos HaDimyon means that we're not clarified from the light of Seichel, are things where we're not thinking through to what degree are our paradigms and perceptions actually true. Instead, what we're doing is we're just working from a place of imagination-based instincts that come from our life experiences. Ohait pa'alut, or another example would be something where you're very emotionally moved. So that's similar to our previous example, though our previous example was you actually have a thought process in which you have reasons why you don't trust people. Hitpa'alut is more where there's some kind of emotional or essentially emotional stimulation that pushes you in a certain direction, either fear or ecstasy, excitement that makes you do or think things or view the world in a certain way that is, again, not really in harmony with what reality is. Maybe you get overwhelmed by a lot of ideas, and you don't know how to put them together. You're kind of like you're mentally breaking down because you're getting exposed to very big, complex, deep thoughts, and you don't know how to put them together. Through the intense change of the new idea, the new exposure, the new way of thinking. So that can happen when you get exposed to very profound ideas in a short time span, and it breaks down the way our minds work, because our minds are not interested really in what's true. Our minds cling to the familiar, and they run from that which is unfamiliar, and that is not always, or very often, it is not in tandem with or in alignment with what is actually true and real. So if someone tells you something which is true, you can be overwhelmed with the shock of the new idea and run away from it. And so that's what hitpa'alut means. Bilti murgelik is something which you're not used to. So that's the shadows that are cast on things that are true that block us from them for these reasons. The phrase, the concept that you should not be afraid, you should not be dominated by or be just make yourself kind of like be a victim of the otot hashamayim, which means really things that are manifestations of the intangible in the world around you. What you can call them in simple English signs from the sky. So that's what the phrase literally is translated as. But obviously, Hashem is not in the sky. The sky is kind of an analogy for something much deeper. In fact, the word shamayim doesn't even mean sky. It means something much deeper than that. That's why the Medrash analyzes it a lot. They actually translate it as sham yam, which means over there is the endless. And to think about that, that's exactly what the sky is. The sky is over there is the endless, which is strange because, if you think about that carefully, you can't have something which is endless be over there, because if it's really endless, it's also over here. It's actually what the sky is. The sky is over there in our minds. It looks like it's over there, but in fact, it's right here too, because all the sky is the atmosphere reflecting the light of the sun at a certain angle to make it look blue, and that atmosphere is right here too. We're in the sky all the time. So over there is the endless means that that's also over here. So it's a side point, but an important one. That's actually really the people who are not experientially encounter or learning these ideas, these concepts about how the world works. So as he's using the word goyim for that, I mean the word goyim is in the phrase here. They have fear of these ideas because they're so profoundly intense in terms of describing what is. So people who are not part of Bnei Yisrael is called goyim. Is a fascinating word to analyze. Also, we'll leave it alone for now. And Yisrael does not have that situation where we become what's the word for it? To be mushpal, to be basically reduced or held down by subjugated maybe by these ideas. We are not going to have that happen to us. And the reason we don't experience that kind of mental subjugation, where we don't get broken by these ideas as much, is because we are kshurim b'chei ha'olamim. We are tied to the source of life that is beyond all layers of reality. The Or Ein Sof, the endless, intangible light. That's really the super consciousness that we call Hashem. So we are tied to that. Makor HaKol, that's the root of all of what we experience in this changing context. The Achdus HaShalem, the complete seamless oneness. We're part of all of that. Shlifnei Echad, that's something which is before the number one. In other words, we think of it as number one is symbolizes the beginning. Actually, the number 0 is the most fascinating number in the number system because it is found in a place. In other words, if you think about the number system, what makes it operate, and you can actually relate one value to another from a quantitative place, is that there's a number 0. Because if there's no number 0, then each unit would just be arbitrarily, in an endless line, infinite line, and there's no starting point of that. But if you think about the number system, it actually is infinite. It goes on and on and on forever in each direction. If you think about positive and negative numbers, and yet it has a starting point. Now, it's pretty weird to think about that. They actually have something which goes on forever, and yet starts somewhere. How could you have that? How could something go on forever and start somewhere? If it starts somewhere, it kind of implies that it ends somewhere. And that is the mystery of the number 0. The number 0 is what comes before 1, and it is far more fascinating. There's a lot of other philosophical discussions about it and things in the Kabbalah about the number 0 and what it represents. It actually operates very similarly in a parallel structure as an analogy to how the time span works in reality, which is that things are constantly evolving and expanding and changing, but they all started from timelessness, and you cannot go back before that in time because there's no before if there's no concept of time. So, but the point here is that's what lifnei echad means. We're talking about something which is so profound. It is in the immutable, unchanging side of reality. It is before there is evolution or expansion or quantities of 1 and 2 and 3. It is before that, and therefore it is completely intangible and not quantifiable. And that context or that state or that way of being, that level, that way of thinking, the unchanging space or context, so that is above all bracha and tehillah. You cannot talk about it, you cannot reflect it, you cannot expand it. That's what bracha is, to expand, to make something more, and tehillah means to reflect it, to sort of show it and paint that it's there. You can't do that with that kind of thing. So Bnei Yisrael is all linked to that system. So that's why for us, we're not as easily traumatized by these ideas, and we're kind of like almost, we maybe get a little shocked by it, but we're actually looking for it. We stand stable on our place, And that's why we're able to absorb it. And then Rav Kook quotes a bunch of psukim from Tehillim that sort of try to capture these things also. And you can read them if you want in Perek Mem, I believe, in Tehillim, and you can try to understand them. I don't really want to analyze those psukim now, just because analyzing things from the Tanakh in this setting, each pasuk and every word is extremely rich and layered, so we would need to do a serious analysis, which would take a long time. But if you're interested in looking it up, feel free, and there are strong connections between what those psukim are saying and this paragraph. That's basically the idea here. That's what we're talking about. On the essence level underneath, there is the root that unifies ideas and kind of brings them together. We tend to have all these shadows and blockages that leads to fragmentation of ideas and understanding of ourselves and reality around us. But we are primed as Bnei Israel to actually constantly absorb more and more truth to make ourselves see more and more clearly over time. We are not subjugated by that type of thing. We are not broken by it, although we might get a little bit shocked by it, but we do ultimately absorb the ideas and become broader and constantly deeper. And our whole role here is to transmit that to the best of our ability to the rest of the world, so that we all live lives of more and more truth, accuracy, what we call tzedek, that it is more accurate, constantly in harmony with emet, which is what reality is. That's pretty much it for Perek Yud Beis.